Welcome heretics to another 40k video as we stare into the timeless depths of the warp, where all stories are already written. Now witness 40k Forbidden Knowledge, where we look at, after the death of its titan, the passing of a Princeps, and the ceremonies that the Adeptus Mechanicus do to honour such a moment. What happens to a Princeps, the leader of a titan, once they pass into the afterlife? Are they bonded with the titan, torn apart by demons, or are they ushered into the light of the omnissiah? And what ceremony is paid to them in their passing? Both the founder and matriarch of the Legion Solarias is ready to pass into the light of the Emperor. She's called Mahana Moncata V. She has served for 2 centuries, and the warlord she commanded lies shattered around her. Life support systems for a short time are keeping her alive. Her granddaughter is present. Her granddaughter is called Abhani Lus, and this moment is part of a final gathering of the Legion's Princeps to witness the passing of their great mother. Abhani's breath caught in her throat as the Legio was preparing for a funeral. To see the shell of the Luxor and Victoria pinned against the far wall by 1,000 extremist-grade mag hooks. Every limb was broken, every plate cracked, and yet the Titan lived. Under the watchful glare of Sagitta Ore, the last of First Manipul's Myrmidons, tech priests worked with feverish application to prevent their god machines passing. They took no rest. They wore out their servitors. Under their intensive care, Luxor and Victoria stabilised and began the slow road to recovery. His head was held in a separate cradle. At the height it would be where it was still attached, as was respectful. Long bridging cables linked the head to the body, bringing together the 2 parts of his soul, Mahana Moncata V, and the machine spirit that dwelled inside his body of iron. "The Titan will walk again," said a tech priest. Abhani Lus did not know, prompted by her sorrow. "So will your grandmother. Rejoice. She joins with the machine." The procession walked on in silence. In front of and beneath the head cradle, a dais platform was held aloft upon a tall scissor lift. A staircase had been set up leading to the platform. Abhani Lus was among the privileged few allowed to ascend, with the other remaining crew and senior strategos. Through the broken faceplate of the Titan, the Great Mother's immersion tank, cracked and blackened, but still complete, was visible. Cables festooned it. Ugly squares of glassite paste patched it, but it functioned, and Mahana lived, for now. The last of her daughters came to pay their final respects. Abhani Lus realised that she would never speak with her grandmother again, and Lus was ushered to the front with great respect. She was not the highest ranked Princeps left alive, but she was the closest to the Great Mother as her last natural granddaughter. Esha lay in an induced coma. The leadership of the Legio hung in the balance, but in this instance the Order shed some of its military manners, acting more as a family. Abhani Lus glanced from side to side, uncomfortable to be set at the head of so many heroes. With the crews with the highest tech priests and Legio's support staff, their numbers were less reduced by the war, although only barely. Sagitta Ore blew out a final funeral note. All those ordained in the cult Mechanicus began to sing a dirge, even the Vox Omni Machina and the Magos Principia Militaris, for this was an occasion of most momentous misery. Neokara and the mechanics worked together over desks cluttered with flashing valses. They struggled to raise the spirit of the Great Mother from her slow slide into death, but they persevered, and eventually the silhouette in the tank jerked, and her head rose. Through these scrappy blurts of damaged voxmeters she spoke. Abhani Lus held her breath in so as not to miss a word. "My daughters," she said, "my children." Even broadcast by voxmeter, her voice was a thin whisper, quiet as a graveyard breeze, yet some power clung to it still. children of my long-departed friends, last of the exiles of House V. Lights blinked, impulsing waves that ran across the equipment desks. Tech priests twittered, binary at one another and their devices. The Great Mother spoke on over their agitation. We have survived this test. Through your skill and dedication, they have got us here. The name of the Legio Solaria will continue. Her vox feed blared with sudden static, breaking up her words, though she did not notice and spoke on, evermore in defence of all we hold dear. But it will not be the same, Legio. Our gene stocks are exhausted. New crews must be found. If the Magi of Tigris return to Procon, which they most surely will, then the terms will be renegotiated with our ancestor houses. The Knights of Procon will not be deceived again. They covet the power of the god machines for themselves. Men will come among us. This aura of the Imperial hunters is over. Tension rose between the surviving women and the tech priests. The future depended on the cult leaders. None of the huntresses disagreed with the Great Mother's assessment. They felt the final cut of the coming betrayal. The universe has changed, my daughters. Horus began his final march for terror. This is the end of the old and the birth of the new. Now we can only survive. As your Grand Master, the Great Mother of this Legio, I have one final request. Her voice was fading, the electronic qualities growing, its humanity dying. Emotion bled away, not quite entirely gone, but her tones lost nuance, so that all was left, in the end, was the sincerity of her plea. It seemed to Abhani Luce that her grandmother addressed her directly, and maybe that was true. Live, take forward the best of what we are, and bring it into the Legio that will bear our name. Remember honour, remember speed, remember cunning, remember the hunter's kindness, to kill cleanly and swiftly, and to let prey live when it should, and kill or cull mercilessly when it should not. I would not ask that you remember me, my time is done, but remember what we, discordant roaring boomed from the voxmeters. The diamechanics fussed over their devices. The Great Mother's voice returned. Remember what we were together. Remember always, Legio first. Her speech concluded abruptly with a musical tone of disconnection. The diamechanics stood still. The hymns swelled. The Vox Omni Machina moved forward. She's dying. It is time for the Great Mother to become one with the machine. Begin deactivation. Far back in the dropship, the bell of remembrance tolled, cast from the broken plates of the Legio's first warlord lost in battle. Its sonorous voice recalled all who had lost their lives in service to the Emperor's dream. The Vox Omni Machina gestured solemnly to the diamechanics. They bowed deeply, their mechadendrites and additional augmatic limbs brushing the floor respectfully, then returned to their machines. Abhani Luce let out a sob and dropped her head. 3 tears fell to the platform floor, each one splashing into a little crown of misery on the metal. A button press began the end of Mahana Moncata V's life. There was wind upon her skin. She was youthful again, and the free of the tank and infirmities of age she was. Her steed Hamaj tensed between her legs, eager to surge forward into the landscape before them, and the horse needed no encouragement. It was a heaven of sorts she had been thrust into, but it could not last. A diabolical laugh cut the sky, making it bleed. Grass wilted where the sound travelled, the earth shook, the wound in the sky spread, its bloody lips, opening on a vista of madness, an ocean of energy, where monsters waited to devour her. Stop, she commanded. But Hamaj did not heed her and plunged onward. The ground shook and began to break into fragments. Soil frittered away into multicoloured vapour. Grass launched itself at the growing rift like arrows loosed. An invisible force pulled at her soul, dragging her towards the writhing maelstrom of sharp eyes and teeth. Hamaj whinnied in panic and fell into yawning nothingness. The last parts of the prairie vision evaporated, leaving her alone. Otherworldly predators circled, ready to tear her to shreds. Mahana Moncata V screamed. This was the reality of the warp. This was what the Imperial truth hid. At the last moment, she felt utterly betrayed and understood firmly why the traitors had turned. Wide-winged things with rasping mouths dived at her through looping whirls of impossible colour. She floated helplessly. Through will alone she shifted herself aside from a swooping beast. Its razored fins caught her, and her sole arms bled light. The creature turned, excited by the scent of corpuscent, upon the Imperium's current and dived. She closed her eyes, wishing it was all over, and it would be soon. And then a great song played. The loudest war horn she had ever heard blasted across the non-space of the warp, and foundry heat beat at her back. She opened her eyes to find herself surrounded by golden light, and the creature fled before it. Trembling, she turned. A vast being filled eternity. She had the impression of a human form, though the entity was too large for mortal eyes to encompass. Its blood and bones were grinding cogs, its thoughts living streams of plasma, its eyes lenses the size of galaxies. An iron door appeared in the maze of machinery in front of her. She looked up, searching for a face, and saw a shining entity looking back down that turned from flesh to light to mechanism and back. Through the door radiated the familiar plasmic warmth of Luxor Invictoria's reactor. She sensed its machine's soul, more apparent to her now, not almost alive, but truly living at the grace of her machine god. A voice spoke within her, a voice beautiful as the finest singer, grating as the mightiest machine. While there is service, there is life, it said. It is time. Mahana Munkartavi passed through the portal, where for one last ultimate time she joined with the spirit of this mighty titan. Mahana Munkartavi was played out by the eerie, monotone screech of monitoring equipment, no longer detecting signs of life. Her corpse floated upward in the Amnion, arms wide, the cables that had sustained her wrapping around her back in a final embrace. She is gone, said the Magos Principia Militaris. She'll be with us forever, said the Vox Omni Machina. In the body of the great god engine, clamped against the wall, the erratic, wounded frequency of the reactor steadied, and with her presence became a little smoother. And on that interesting extract, friends, we'll wrap up today's video. I hope you enjoyed that insight into the spirit after death of someone who's in command of a titan, and also the general ceremony that's around it. I particularly love the moment of this massive horn blaring out to her, waking up all the demons and scaring the heck out of them, and her spirit being returned and residing within the titan. And was it me, or perhaps did she see the omnissiah in that vision for a moment? Possibly.